Welcome to the SwimSwam podcast. I'm today's host, Coleman Hodges. Joining us today is Tokyo Olympian Michael Brinegar. Michael, thanks for being here today. This episode of the SwimSwam podcast is sponsored by Commit Swimming, SwimSwam's exclusive team management software partner. Since 2015, Commit has been providing coaches with swimming's leading workout management software. And now, Commit has team management software too. Commit wants to help you make the switch from Team Unify to a simpler, more powerful solution. Their onboarding and customer service team will walk you through every step of the way. Check them out at commitswimming.com to book your demo today. That's COMMIT swimming.com. As we get started, I'm going to read an excerpt from an article published on June 22nd, 2024. Tokyo Olympian Michael Brinegar is out of the men's 1,500 meter freestyle heats on the final day of prelims at the 2024 U.S. Olympic trials after the Court of Arbitration of Sport, or CAS, ruled in favor of the United States Anti-Doping Agency, or Usada's, allegations of blood doping during a 3-month period in 2022. That means Brinegar is facing a 4-year ban. The Usada's claim is that Brinegar, now 24, was blood doping based on test results from June, July, and August of 2022 after the 2022 World Championships that were higher than benchmark for erythropoietin, or EPO. Brinegar had originally been slated to compete at those Worlds, but withdrew after contracting COVID-19 and says the tests came during a period that I was not training. So Michael, again, thanks for being here today and being willing to give us your side of this story. So I'm going to give you the floor, and if you could just tell us your side of how all of this went down pretty much over the last 2 years.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for having me on here. I really appreciate the opportunity to tell my story. This all started pretty much 2 years ago now, right after the Portugal World Cup that the U.S. was using as a qualifier for Worlds that summer. I placed second out of Americans in that race, and with how I had done at the Open Water Nationals a month prior, it put me in a spot to swim the 25K at the Worlds in June. I ended up coming back from that meet, got sick, got COVID like pretty much right away. I didn't train at all right after that. So I got COVID, pulled out of the meet, went home, took some time off. It was basically from that 10K race at the end of May up until July 18th or July 16th. Sorry.
I'm just curious. What were the symptoms like? I mean, were you sort of sick? Were you really sick at that period? I think that's the longest time you had taken out of the water in quite some time.
Yeah. So the first like 3 days that I was sick, I mean, the first symptoms I had were just like I took a nap, woke up from it, felt really nauseous, threw up. And then I just got hit with a fever and just really bad body aches. And I had that for pretty much the next 3 days. And I was literally just laying in my bed over the course of those 3 days. I couldn't really do anything else. I couldn't focus, just had massive headaches. I was just there. It was just like the worst I'd ever felt, and it was very hard, but then after that, like I kind of slowly recovered from it, didn't have the body aches or anything like that. But over the course of the next month, I still was just pretty exhausted. I mean, at the time I was taking a break, so I didn't think much of it. The main reason I was taking that break was I had pulled out of Worlds, and after being as sick as I was, I didn't think I'd be able to get prepared enough to swim at the end of the season meet, like a U.S. Open at the end of July. So it's just like, might as well take a break while I can, try to recover, make sure I don't have any long-term effects from getting back in the water too quickly after having COVID. And just like was really trying to make sure I didn't have long-term effects, like I said. And then, during that month I took off, I had very low energy, spent most of my time in either sleeping or just sitting in the house. I didn't really do much else. At the beginning of July, I did go visit my brother in DC. But when I did that, I was supposed to start training the week after I got back. And at the point, I kind of realized I was still a little more tired than I wanted to be and didn't have the energy I wanted to start training again. So I was like, I need to take another week to kind of hopefully recover, get some more energy, so I'm ready to go when I start training again. I took another week off, started training again. That first test they did was 2 days after I started training again. And then I had signed up for the 10K or World Cup race in Canada. It was supposed to be like a pretty unique 10K race. It was supposed to be a point to point. So instead of like in a circle or like just a course, it was just like you start here and then you go to there and then it's 10K straight. So it's something I hadn't done before, and I thought it could be just a cool experience and just another way to get more experience for me racing internationally, since I hadn't had that much. I wasn't really looking to win because I knew it wasn't really realistic after a month of training, but I was still going to go out there, do my best, just try to learn what I could from it. But during that time leading up to that, it was very frustrating. I was the most out of shape I've ever been in my life. I was struggling to hold 110 base, and anything over 400 was ridiculously hard for me to do. And sometimes I wasn't capable of doing it. So I was getting really frustrated with that because that was something that had become relatively easy for me the years prior to that. So, it was just mentally tough. And then beginning of August, or not in the middle of August, about a week and a half before the race, I actually went to my brother's bachelor's party that he had in Louisville. And I had originally planned on going and training, but while I was there, but when I got there, I was just like, I kind of want to just have fun and take my mind off it because I was just too frustrated with how bad I was doing. So I'd taken some more time off again. It was like another 3-4 days. It's not much, but when I've only been training for a few weeks before, it kind of didn't definitely hurt me a little bit. So then after that, just got back or went to the meet in Canada, ended up getting, I know at least one person got out during the race. I'm pretty sure I finished next to last overall still there were only 20 people or 21 people racing, but I was like 19th or 20th. Came back, just kind of kept the training, like slowly increasing the workload still and trying to get back in shape and just get ready for this like upcoming year. So I spent the next few weeks just doing that, training here. I was here in Columbus, Indiana, so our pool had closed down. Our long course pool had closed down by that point. So I would drive over to Bloomington, which was about 50 minutes away from me, and do a long course training 2 or 3 times a week there at the outdoor pool. And then just kind of kept that going. And then up until early September, my brother had his wedding, went there for that. It was another 5 days out of the water. And then right after my brother's wedding, went to Ohio State to start my training there. And within a week and a half or 2 weeks after that was the third drug test that that Usada has put in their like timeline that they consider me doping. After that, just got my year going with Ohio State, training there. Went and did a meet, another World Cup in November in Israel. Finished like 33rd or something. I was pretty far back pretty much throughout the whole race. Like I still was in good shape. I felt like didn't really feel like I got in good shape, good train, like where I wanted to be until late January, February at Ohio State. Just kind of then went throughout that year. Went and did open water nationals, didn't do well there that year. And then just kind of kept the training going, getting ready for world trials in June in Indy last year now, and felt like my training was really good. I was really excited to get up and race a mile at a trials meet for the first time in 2 years at that point, because I didn't do any pool swimming the summer before. Got to the meet, was feeling pretty good, pretty excited to race. And then while I was getting ready the night before the race, the mile, the first day of the meet, got an email from Usada claiming that they suspected me of blood doping. And that was just a really big shock. I didn't really understand what they were like accusing me of. I didn't understand like how it could have come up. Like was trying to figure it out. Just like I was in a state of shock for a while, and then just overwhelming emotion. It just didn't make sense because they were claiming tests from a year ago or the year before. It didn't make sense why it would take so long for that to come up in the first place. And then second of all, like at first I was like, I can't even remember what I was doing at that point initially. And then as I remembered, I was like, oh, it kind of makes sense that my blood levels would have been off during this time. Like I hadn't been training. And then as I thought more, I was like, oh, I had COVID like right before as well. Like I feel like my blood levels, it would make sense for them to be off. So
did they ever give a reasoning for why that took so long, right? Why the tests were done in July to September and then you didn't, there nothing happened until the following June?
Yeah, no, they it was a very brief like reasoning, and they just said that's what happens with the athlete biological passport. It takes time, but I don't understand because these tests, they get the results pretty quick right away of like what the levels are. I mean, when we got sent the data or the data they had for it of after the test, and they had highlighted that it was suspicious back that last fall in like October, and then in April of that year they had said that like they had confirmed it, but then it still took them another 2 months basically to let me know and get the process started really on my side. And I don't know, it's just kind of crazy that it took them up until the night before the first race. Like the timing was just really horrible. Like this whole process is just, for something that happened 2 years ago now for me finding out, but tests that are this is some like tests that happened 2 years ago now and found out a year ago. And this, like, it's just been a very long process.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, sorry, you can, if you could please continue, with your side of the story, moving on from there.
Yeah. So they said, I had 10 days to respond to this, either admitting to it or like no contesting. I can't remember exactly what it was, or sending within the 10 days, send in a response like explaining why my blood levels were off. So at that point that night, like just emotionally very drained, and was just like, I've got to try to refocus, reset, get ready for the mile the next day, because I knew that was still a possibility. Or not. I knew I was still going to be able to swim that next day, and I was not in the right headspace to do it. I didn't get any sleep that night. I got up, and before the race, I was just like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to get up and race. Like, this isn't something like I was not ready to do. So I got up. It wasn't a good swim. Wasn't anywhere near what I had been doing in practice, getting ready for. So it was just kind of frustrating. But I was like, okay, like got that out of the way. Just try to get ready for the rest of the meet. And then next swim I had was a 400, and I went slower than what I took the mile out in. So I was just like, yeah, I just need to stop, get done, and try to focus on getting the response sent. So got the work together with my parents. My mom used to at the beginning of her career, she was a lawyer, so we kind of worked together to get a statement put together that was kind of well worded and kind of explained why, like, I had COVID, I hadn't been training, and like just figured like, okay, like my blood levels didn't seem like they're outside the range they had set, but um, when we first initially looked it up, my blood levels were still within like NIH levels for people my age. Like they weren't extremely high. They were just like extremely high for where um, they had set for me. But I mean, also they had only ever done blood tests on me over the 3 years in that time period that they had been doing it when I was at peak training or right before a big meet. So I was always at like my peak physical. And the blood test that they were taking from, I was 2 days after I started training again, had gained weight, was out of shape, and like I still think I was recovering from COVID. And then the next one was in August. Like again, like it was just I was still very out of shape, not in it, not physically well. And then in September again, like I had a detraining period again, and then getting back into it, I still wasn't in shape. I didn't think I was in shape again until January or February that year. So it's just kind of frustrating. Like looking back at it, how this is all played out. But again, sorry, so sending that thing in July or early July back to the response within those 10 days. I decided to go back out and train in California because at the time, I didn't know what the plan was moving forward, like how this was all going to shape out. So wanted to go back with Mark in California. So went back out there that summer. Ended up being able, I don't know how I was able to put it out of my mind, and then was able to have a pretty decent meet at the end of the summer. I broke 15 minutes for the first time, which I was pretty excited about. And at that point, like hadn't heard anything. It was the end of July, early August at that point. Still hadn't heard anything back from them. So I was just
So
like, okay,
you had sent your response in and then had not heard anything.
No, so it was just like kind of
Okay.
like, yeah. So swam that meet at the end of July, early August. Was like, all right, like I had stayed with my old host family while I was out there. I was planning, we had like some guys coming out to train with the team. We were going to move into a place together. So we got that all set up, like got out there, had spent 3 days out there. Like it was pretty much out of my mind. Like it was almost like it didn't happen. And then 3 or 4 days after moved in out there, got an email saying that they didn't find my explanation explained why my blood levels were off. So they were going to, I was provisionally suspended pending a further hearing. And, like that, I mean, I didn't, because the way it happened last time, I was able to keep swimming, able to keep doing everything. So like, I kind of was like, okay, gotta like deal with this. Like, gotta get an actual lawyer now, moving forward to take care of this. And, I was getting ready to go to practice. Got a call from someone at USA Swimming telling me like, you're provisionally suspended. You're not allowed to train. You're not allowed to talk to a coach. You can't train with a team. You can't use a USA Swimming pool. You can only use like public pools. Or like public pool hours, basically. And so I was just like in shock. Like I didn't understand why it took them another month to like come back and say that, like like again, it was just another long process and of just like I kind of again like I just thought like it was over with. I wasn't gonna have to deal with it. So getting hit with it again just it took a lot out of me. I like finding out like I was gonna have to train on my own. I specifically went out to California to train long course, and have this like multiple distance partners to train with, and I was going to be stuck swimming. I had to find. I mean, thankfully, we for our weights we were lifting it. Had to get a membership at LA Fitness to do that, and they have a pool there, so that was what I ended up doing was training at their pool. But I mean, it was a 3-lane, 25-yard pool that it's always heated because most of the people that swim in there want it warm. They're not doing hard workouts or anything. So, I mean, it was brutal. I really struggled over the course of those. I was provisionally suspended for 3 months. I really struggled to get through workouts most of the time that I was having to make up on my own. Having to hold myself to do it. I really had to find a way to motivate myself to finish most of the workouts I would write for myself because I would just be like, why am I doing this? Like, there's not even a chance I'll be able to swim like within this next year. I couldn't really keep a good schedule going. Like, I got in a rhythm once where I was able to maintain like a good 2 weeks, but I can't remember what happened. Something came up, and then I really struggled for the next, like, basically up until I left, or the provisionally got the response back. So I had the hearing with the individual arbitrator October 30th. That was I mean, that hearing itself was a long process. It was nearly 12 hours, so it took up a whole day. It was really rough because I'm having to listen to people say like they have no doubt that I'm doping, like having USADA attorneys and then their experts say that I was blood doping, and that I don't know, it was very difficult to listen to. And then I like moving forward after that, it was supposed to be a deadline of a month after that was October 30th. So November 30th was initially what we were supposed to have the full reasoning by. So I but I was planning on going to a World Cup and Portugal again. That was going to be used for the U.S. team to make Worlds, which would also then be a further step to make the Olympic team. So I was like, I'm trying to do everything I can to do that, give myself the opportunity to. So we asked for a provisional award, and so I would be able to leave and be able to get there and be able to train before the meet started. And they said that they would, the arbitrator said that they would get that done. That next month of November again was really rough. Just waiting every day for the response was made a very long, hard process. I really struggled to get sleep because I felt like I would wake up the next morning and just like have the news, and I hadn't been through this process before. I was just in a really bad mindset where it was just kind of negative. Everything was negative. Like, this isn't going to work out. But I just kind of somehow kept moving, kept getting through, trying to keep myself in shape, getting ready for the race. And, I flew out the 27th of November, hadn't gotten anything back yet. So it got there. We were hoping my mom was traveling with me as my coach. Well, she wasn't technically my coach. She was just traveling as my mom at that time since I was still provisionally suspended. But she would be my coach once I was able to start swimming again, or like allowed to swim with USA Swimming. Mm-hmm. And so got there, hadn't heard anything back still. and found out like that there was going to be pool training that day, and I was like, it's been a while since I've trained, like I'm going to try to get in. I knew I was the first American to be there, so I was like, okay, no Americans will be there, I should be able to swim. I didn't understand that it meant like I couldn't train like with any kind of organization, like pool space time. So that pool space time was set up for the athletes competing in the meet. I was able to provisionally enter since I would have a result before the meet started. So, but since I was still suspended, I wasn't allowed to. And I went to the pool that day, and the sandpiper team had showed up, and I was like, well, I'm not going to be able to swim now. Well, I found out the USA open water director, Bryce Elsler, was there, and he told me, like, you can't swim right now, like, until we get the results back. And I mean, I was devastated. Like, I was there, and like they all saw me there, and I had gone there to swim, and it was like all of a sudden, like, you can't get in. And it was like they were all there, saw me there, and I was stuck. It's a foreign country, and like we had driven or been on a bus to get to the pool, and I was just like, am I gonna have to sit here for the next like hour and a half, 2 hours, and like just still have to be waiting for a response, and have these people see that I'm not swimming, and they're gonna ask me why I'm not swimming. And I eventually was just like, looked up how far away the hotel was, and it was like a 2-3 mile walk. I just did the walk back because I didn't want to be there in front of them. I mean, I kind of broke down initially again because it was like this. I'm not going to be able to swim. Like, I haven't heard back still. It was very tough to deal with, but my lawyer thankfully was able to get the arbitrator to like be like, hey, he's in Portugal, like he needs a response now to be able to train at all. With just being in a foreign country, there's no way to find out like if there's public pool space somewhere for me to swim. So 10 p.m. Portugal was the when I was going to be finding out. And initially I was like, okay, I'm going to try to like go to bed, like get adjusted to the time. I like don't want to think about it, but I was too stressed, and like at 10, I ended up like, because I had told my parents and my lawyer, like, I don't want to know, like, just let me know in the morning. But then I was like, I got to know. It was fine. I got the text like that I was cleared. It was the biggest relief. I was just so happy I was going to be able to train and get to compete and have the opportunity to put myself on the world's team and hopefully then the Olympic team.
And so to be clear, you got cleared to provisionally train and compete, or this was the arbitrator's decision?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was the arbitrator's decision that I was like, she sided with me. She like hadn't given her full reasoning yet, but like her initial, or like she was going to side with me. So I was ecstatic, basically. Like, I was happy. I was so happy. I got in and was able to train with the team. I was in good shape, but I wasn't in great shape. I was kind of getting killed, but I ended up working out with the Sandpiper kids, and they were kind of killing me. But I was just happy to be training again. So I was just putting everything I had into those workouts to make sure I would be ready to go for the 10K. Getting into that 10K, I was just kind of like, I don't think I have a great chance of doing this, like being one of the top 2 Americans to qualify for the world's team. But, I've got to give it everything I have. I just got to know I didn't leave anything in that race where I could be thinking, oh, like if I had given more, like I had a chance. So, I just went in, swam my race. And at the time, like I wasn't very fast, but I like to finish my races hard. So I just kind of stuck as well as I could to the pack without overdoing it, and then just kind of went on that last lap and managed to pass some of the Americans that were in front of me. Ended up getting second out of the Americans. I was 43rd overall, which 40, somewhere in the early or low 40s, but which isn't great. But I mean, I was able to be a second American to give myself that chance at Worlds. So, you know, it was over, like, again, like this time it was overwhelming emotion, but it was like on the other side of the spectrum where it was just like pure joy, like happiness, relief. I was just happy to be racing again, happy to be swimming again, with like teams and have a coach coaching me. And like, you know, I was going to be able to move forward from this and not have to deal with any of this kind of stuff again. I like thought, and so I like got back, was able to train with the team and stuff, but the arbitrator hadn't sent in the full reasoning yet. She had ended up getting COVID, which is why she was late on the provisional award, and then why it took longer for her to release the full reasoning. And then I forget when she did. It was like mid-December, I think, by the point she finally did. You know, I didn't. And then, like, I was just moving forward, training, getting ready for Worlds. And then in early mid-January, I found out Usada would appeal and that I would have to go through this whole process again through CAS. But
I'm just curious, you know, in the full reasoning, in the arbitrator's full reasoning for siding with you, could you shed some light on, you know, just what her reasoning was for that?
Yeah, she found USADA, like, USADA is supposed to prove that there's a reasonable doping scenario, and she found that they weren't able to prove that. She found that, you know, I had an expert on my side. He was a hematologist from the Mayo Clinic, basically say like, yeah, like he had COVID, he could have had anemia, COVID-induced anemia after, which would cause his blood levels to be off. So she was like, his reasoning, like, proves that his blood levels would change, and you know, and like there's more to it that's a little more technical that I kind of struggle with understanding and explaining.
I think that's what I personally was looking for.
Yeah.
So that,
yeah.
Okay. So yeah. So you, January comes along, the USADA will appeal the decision.
Mm-hmm. This is, you know, this is just like another shows like how long they take with this process. Like they waited, I think they had, it was somewhere 2 to 3 weeks to announce that they would appeal, and they waited that whole time to announce that they were going to appeal. And, you know, it was mid-January. I was supposed to race a 10K February 2nd, and they're like, all right, like we want to have a hearing before then. But then Cass and I think my lawyer were like, they didn't have a time slot set before then. So it was going to be after. And so, I mean, I went through, did Worlds. I'm pretty much, or like going down the list, I'm the first one out that didn't get an Olympic spot. So, I mean, I just missed out making an Olympic team through that, which was pretty difficult. You know, but then after that, like, I was just like, okay, I still have the pool. I can still get ready for that, give myself an opportunity in that race to put myself on the Olympic team. You know, and I had the best training I've ever had, February, March, April. So I was really excited. You know, and I hadn't heard
of 2024. Okay.
Yeah, this year. And USADA, you know, it was like in 2023, they just didn't set a date, didn't want to set it, or it didn't seem like they were going to set a date. So again, I was like, all right, this isn't going to happen. Like they're going to pull out of appealing. This is like, I kind of got in the mindset again where like, this is kind of over with. Like, I'm not going to deal with it. And ended up finding out sometime in April. I can't exactly remember when, but that the hearings were going to be in end of May, and then first week of June. And initially it was like, okay, that's like far away now. But as it got closer, I got really stressed out again. I won the independent hearing, or the first hearing, and looking at it, it was like, I don't think I'm going to lose this second case. Like it didn't make any sense that I would lose it again, or not lose it again, but just lose it. And but I mean, as it went on, as I got closer to that first hearing, I was just unbelievably stressed out, and I mean, it really affected my mental state. I was still doing well in practice, but like I was on edge. I kind of snapped at my coach twice. Kind of blew up. First time we did it, we were at a training camp in Flagstaff. I basically was like, I'm done. Like I quit. Like I don't want to do this anymore. Like this stress is too much. It's not enjoyable for me. So I mean, he thankfully talked me out of it both times. The first time was 4 days before the first hearing, going through that hearing again. I mean, they were split up into 2 hearings that were like 5 hours each day, 4 to 5 hours each day this time. So it was sometime in the May, and then the second one was the first Monday of June. I remember that. And the second time I blew up again was like a couple days after that second hearing. And I mean, again, I'm very thankful he talked me out of quitting, because I ended up going to trials and getting to swim that 400, and I dropped for the first time my 400 since 2019. And I mean, like going into the meet, my focuses were the 800 mile, so I wasn't really expecting anything in the 400. It was just kind of get into the meet, and I went a best time. Getting to do that, like swimming kind of stress-free in that 400, pretty much just racing, having that joy of just getting up, racing, finishing, putting in a really good effort and seeing a best time it just reminded me again of why I do this. And, I was just really, I mean, after that 400 was one of the happiest I've ever been after a race. So sorry again, had the hearings. Usada asked for a provisional award before, because of trials coming up, and they agreed to it. And so going into the meet, I felt like this time, since there are 3 people would be deciding, that they would be able to give the provisional award faster this time. So I was basically assuming, like, if they found or sided with USADA, they would let me know before the meet started, or at least within the first couple of days of the meet. So, I did the 400, and like I told you about how that was for me. And then ended up swimming the 800. And I mean, that time it was like night and day difference of how I approached the races, where got stressed. Like, I have to do well. I have to make the final, like everything has to be right for this race. So like I was just kind of got in, didn't feel great. I mean, as a prelim swim, you're not always going to feel good, but like I wasn't in that mindset of like, just relax. Like I can get through this race. But like I got to the 200 and I was like, I'm so tired. I want to be done. And so like that race didn't go well, but afterwards I was like, I just got to relax and swim my race, and I'll be fine. I just got to put everything into it I can and know that I didn't leave anything behind. So I was just like, next couple of days, still hadn't heard anything. I was like, all right, I'm fine. Getting ready for the mile. My training had been great. I mean, the day before I'd been able to get in a workout before the mile and did pace, and it was the best I'd ever felt doing pace. And I was just excited. I was like, even if I don't feel good, like these times, and my times were really good, I was like, my times are good enough that all I have to do is just stay kind of relaxed as best I can, and just trust that I'm doing well, like not being negative. And so I was really excited to get ready and swim that mile the next day. I felt like I was going to have a really good swim. It was midday that day before the race. Then got a call from my lawyer, and like as soon as he started talking, I knew it wasn't good. He said they sided with USADA, and it's just, kind of this time wasn't the same as last time. The last trials where I was in a state of shock for a little bit, like just couldn't really process everything. But that only lasted 30 minutes that time. This time, like it's still kind of like I don't know how to process any of this. It doesn't make sense that this is happening. So yeah, pretty much where I'm at.
Yeah. So I guess first of all, I know that the CAS has released their ruling on the case, but they haven't released their full the reasoning. Have you been informed of any of the reasoning?
Other than the provisional award they had sent out,
Mm-hmm.
which is just basically they're signing with USADA.
Right. So you're unaware of what the difference essentially is from the last time until this time.
Yeah, you mean like between the two cases?
Yeah, why they sided with you on the first time, but not this time.
Yeah, I mean it's additionally frustrating because there's a steeplechase runner that had a pretty identical case. I mean, I don't know how identical, everything, but she had a athlete biological passport case, and I think she had won her hearing, and then one of the governing bodies appealed it, and she had her hearing with CAS, and CAS sided with her, but one of her reasons that her blood levels were off were COVID. It's like same thing as me. It doesn't make sense. This came out I think last week. It was sometime after I had found out. So it just doesn't. It's kind of baffling that that CAS sides with her reasoning, but they won't side with mine. I mean, we won't until the full reasoning comes out, but still, just looking at it now, it's why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I remember seeing that report, and yeah, it's interesting how so many of these reports come out so close to an Olympic trials or an Olympic games. To me, it's a little baffling as well. I'm curious if you presented your side of the case in the first hearing, and the arbitrator sided with you. When you went through the two hearings for this retrial with USADA and CAS, I'm wondering, did USADA present different information than they had last time? Did you present different or additional information than you had last time or the first time around?
No, it was essentially the same hearing. I mean, one thing USADA did change was they initially said that the time period that they would have found that I was doping would have been May to July, and their expert in the second hearing changed it, and it was like, oh, it was July to September. It was a separate time frame this time. They just changed that, which was kind of just a little frustrating that they're allowed to change what their statements were about this, and they don't have any repercussions on that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, my case was just basically the same, and it's even more frustrating. One of the things USADA was appealing was the independent arbitrator that sided with me. They said didn't have enough experience, but this was an independent arbitrator that they had selected them, they had put into a pool of independent art people to choose from. So this is something USADA had set up, and they're like, no, it wasn't right. I'm sorry, it's just like they have a pool of people that they put to select from for these cases to decide for these arbitrators to be arbitrators on these cases. And like this is someone that they have put into this pool that they agree is like capable of doing, and then all of a sudden they're like, no, we don't agree with that. And like this is something that becomes frustrating again, is the track athlete. I don't know if you've seen the 200 track runner that had been had a contaminated test, or he claimed was contaminated. He had his hearing, and he won his case with an independent arbitrator. And the Usada CEO Travis Tigart comes out and says, like, yeah, justice was served. Like, we're not going to appeal this. We're happy with it. And it's like, well, what's the difference? Like, I never have tested positive for anything. And nothing's ever come up. My blood levels were different at this time because of me having COVID and not training, and then training slightly and like not training again. Like, it's just very frustrating that they side with some independent arbitrators. It's like I've been really thinking a lot, like maybe if I was a higher profile athlete, like this wouldn't be happening. Like if I had done better at different meets in the past, like would Usada not have appealed? Would CAS have sided with me? Is that like the difference? Because I mean, that steeplechase runner is a world champion. Like, it's just it's not fair. It's one of the things that this is supposed to be all about, is making sure sport is fair, and this whole process just hasn't been.
It's an interesting time for USADA because they're, the case with 23 Chinese swimmers testing positive has just been brought to light in April. USADA is in, seems to be going back and forth a lot with WADA on WADA's handling of that case. And, then WADA brings up how USADA has handled certain cases. It feels like USADA is trying to make a point right now, and I'm not specifically referring to your case, but they're trying to make a point to WADA about how they operate versus how WADA operates. You said it felt unfair. I'm wondering if any of this feels political, or if this feels like you might be an example.
That's just something that I'm going to always be questioning for the rest of my life now. Has my past 2 years of my life just been kind of almost been ruined? I'm like going to have to deal with this for the rest of my life. Like, no, like not being able to swim that mile, have that opportunity. I'm always going to question, like, would I have made the team? That's something I'm never going to know. Like having to wonder, like, is this political? Was this completely out of my control? Like, I know I'm innocent. Like, again, like I've never tested positive for anything. I was raised to be a clean athlete. My mom competed at the 76 Olympics against the East Germans, and then competed internationally through the late 70s after that against them. Like, to think that she would allow that to happen, and then in the time frame that USADA is claiming I was doping, I was living at home with her, and that I would do that then, that she would allow that I would do that under her nose. It's like, this has been really difficult for me, and I can't imagine what it's like for her to have to deal with people back then that they knew were cheating, but they speak out against it, and they were ridiculed by the media. And now, like, she's having to watch me, like, watch her son be accused of something she knows I didn't do, because she was there with me that whole time. She was coaching me during that time frame. Like, I can't imagine what it's like. It's just like some kind of sick joke.
Yeah. I'm going. Thank you for that perspective. I think it's important to bring that context out. One final question I have about the process is that after Usada had said, we're going to go against this, we want a retrial, did you or your team go back and try to pull other research or other findings about why this may have been the case for you, especially with COVID related blood levels?
Yeah, this is another thing that the past like 2 weeks I've been really thinking about is like, just thinking about this, I kind of shut down everything. Just so during that time frame when it came up, I pretty much just like left it to my lawyer to handle. I mean, my lawyer is Howard Jacobs. He's handled cases before, lots of cases, and done well. And I mean, that first hearing, he was incredible. And I mean, the second hearing again, he was incredible. But it's like, maybe had I put in that effort, like, we could have found something. But I mean, if I had done that effort, I would have, I know I would have been pretty unsettled and not in a good headspace for a couple weeks to a month, just having to think about it. Like, so yeah, it's so if he yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and again, it's a situation where you had already proven your innocence once.
Yeah.
It seemed like there was enough information there, or you had at least been told that by an arbitrator who was deemed fit for that. So yeah, that makes sense. And I think also, as an athlete, you were preparing to do what you've trained for your whole life, which was be an athlete,
Yeah.
and not prove your innocence.
Mm-hmm.
So once again, Michael, I appreciate you coming on here and giving your perspective on this. I'm as you said, it's still kind of a state of shock, which I think is very understandable. I'm wondering if you've thought about what moving forward looks like for you at this point.
I mean, like I had said earlier, like the 2 times Mark kind of talked me back into it, and then getting us on that 400. I'm gonna keep swimming. I'm not gonna let my swimming career end like this. So I'm gonna keep fighting no matter what, to prove my innocence. And regardless of what happens, if I have to wait the 3.5 years, I'm gonna come back and swim then. So moving forward, I've got to wait for the CAS hearing to see what we can do. But like I said, I'm gonna keep swimming because I was able to find like the reason why I enjoy swimming, just having that swim, just like so recent, being able to remember why and why I want to keep doing this. So yeah, I mean, even with that, like, I just want to prove my innocence, because it's not only my name that's being affected, it's my the coaches I've had, and my mom. This isn't only affecting me, this is affecting others. So yeah, it's just gotta keep fighting to prove the innocence.
Thank you for taking the time to come on and share your story on this. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we sign off?
Just really want to reemphasize, like, I'm innocent. Like, I have a post up on Medium that goes into better detail. about everything. It's much better worded because it's not done over talking, where it's more difficult for me to maintain the process. So if you have questions, like if anybody has questions with that, just go and read that, and you can see the facts there about the case and understand. And I just really want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on this. I really appreciate it.
You've been listening to the SwimSwam podcast. Stay tuned for new episodes every week. You can take SwimSwam podcast on the go by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Look for links in the description below, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos as well.